Imagine waking up in a world where your biggest achievement of the day might be surviving it. Welcome to the Game of Thrones universe, where being a peasant isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle, and not a particularly glamorous one. While lords and knights plot, feast, and battle for thrones and titles, you, a humble peasant, are left to deal with the scraps of their ambitions. So, what does it feel like to live at the bottom of Westeros' feudal pyramid? Let's dive into it. First up, wars. When you're a peasant, war is not a glorious affair where you earn honor, it's a disaster. Armies march through your village, burn your crops, and sometimes press you into service. The best case scenario? You die quickly in battle. Worst case? You're left alive to see your home destroyed and your family scattered. The lords may call it fighting for the realm, but for you, it's just another Tuesday of misery. And let's not forget the aftermath of war. After the knights ride off, you're left to clean up the mess, burying the dead, repairing homes, and replanting fields that may not even yield crops in time. If you're lucky, you might find a discarded sword or piece of armor to sell, assuming the local lord doesn't claim it first. And if you think refusing the draft is an option, think again. That would likely earn you a swift punishment or a trip to the gallows. Oh, and pro tip, don't try hiding in the woods. That's where the bandits live, and they're worse than the army.
Politics in Westeros isn't just about backstabbing and betrayals. It's about how those betrayals ruin your life. When Lord So-and-so betrays Lady What's-Her-Name, it's not just castle gossip. It's the reason why your taxes double this year, or why you suddenly have to swear fealty to a new banner. And don't even think about saying, "What about my rights?" Because, spoiler alert, peasants don't have any. Your opinion matters as much as a raven's leftover dinner. Now imagine living under a lord who's embroiled in political intrigue. One day, you're paying taxes to House Stark. The next, your village is annexed by House Bolton. Do you think the lords care about your opinion on the matter? Of course not. All you can do is hope the new ruler doesn't decide to discipline your village to set an example. Meanwhile, the nobility continues their Game of Thrones, blissfully unaware of the chaos they've unleashed on the Smallfolk. And what's your reward for enduring all this? A front row seat to watch your lord lose his head when he backs the wrong king. Now let's talk about winter. Everyone in Westeros seems obsessed with it, and for good reason. For peasants, winter isn't a cozy season of hot soups and fireside stories. It's months, maybe years, of freezing temperatures, dwindling food supplies, and the constant fear that your village will be wiped out by frost or White Walkers. The nobles have their warm castles and stockpiles, but for you, it's huddling in a drafty hut and hoping your neighbor doesn't eye your goat too hungrily. The worst part? Even if you manage to survive the bitter cold, there's no guarantee your village will bounce back in the spring. Fields lie fallow, livestock perishes, and your fellow villagers might be too weak to work. And should White Walkers or wildlings decide to pass through your region, survival becomes even more uncertain. For the Smallfolk, winter isn't just a season, it's a death sentence. And let's not forget the smug nobles who say, "We all must endure." Easy for them to say while sipping wine in their heated halls. Speaking of goats, let's talk about taxes. Being a peasant means handing over most of what you produce to your lord, who then hands over some of it to his lord, and so on. By the time you're done, you're left with barely enough to survive. Got a good harvest? Great. That just means your lord will take more next year. Oh, and don't forget the Faith of the Seven. They'll want their share too, because apparently even the gods need your hard-earned grain. Taxes aren't just limited to crops either. If you fish, the river belongs to the lord. If you hunt, the forest belongs to the lord. Want to marry your sweetheart? That'll cost you too. The idea of free will doesn't exist in this feudal system. Everything you do is under the watchful eye of your lord, who might not even remember your name. And let's not forget that taxes often go towards funding wars you didn't ask for. A cruel irony if ever there was one. Honestly, if you find a coin in the mud, just assume someone's going to tax you for picking it up. Finally, let's face it, life as a peasant is brutally short and utterly insignificant. You're born, you toil, And if you're lucky, you die of old age rather than famine or plague. Your name will never be remembered, your deeds will never be sung, and your biggest contribution to the world might be fertilizing the field you worked on. But hey, at least you're not a Joffrey, right? Even the rare moments of joy, a village festival, a successful harvest, are fleeting. And while the nobility may spend their days scheming and fighting, you're too busy surviving to care. In the end, the Game of Thrones is just background noise to the endless grind of peasant life. It's not fair, but then again, nothing in Westeros ever is. Your best hope? Maybe one day a traveling bard will write a half-decent song about your misery. So, how does it feel to be a peasant in the Game of Thrones world? In a word, awful. But if there's one thing we can learn from their resilience, it's that even in the darkest of times, people find ways to endure. Whether it's through hard work, community, or the occasional laugh at their lord's expense, peasants keep Westeros running. So next time you watch Game of Thrones and see a village go up in flames, spare a thought for the real heroes, the ones who never had a chance to play the game. If you enjoyed this look at the grittier side of Westeros life, give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the Game of Thrones universe. And let me know in the comments, which noble house would you want as your overlord? Or would you rather take your chances in Essos? Thanks for watching.